And we are live. Thank you, everyone, for joining us on this 12th episode of the Weekly. Thank you, Mr. Juan Magnell, for being part of the show, as always. How you doing?
Always happy to join. I got my coffee in hand, so I think we can. It's a Star Wars themed show. Look at that.
That's
Excellent.
right.
That is a really trick R2D2 mug. I like to look at that. That's pretty cool.
I want to I want to thank Mr. Daniel Sin for getting me that. My videographer. It's gonna be some cool stuff on his trips. So thank you, Daniel.
That was a good find. I'd keep Daniel. He seems like a neat guy.
Thank you, everyone, for joining in the chat. As always, this is the Weekly. We usually have a nice set of hosts, usually 4 of us in total. Mr. Warren Bowman can't make it because he's working. And Sam, I don't know. Might show up.
He's a mystery. He's an enigma.
Yes. So let's kick things off. I forgot to even ask you earlier. Do we have a uselessness? Do you have a uselessness for the show?
I didn't even think about it, but I'm sure we'll find one during the show.
Yes.
Because there are a bunch of things going on that are kind of goofy, and I just can't. Oh, one of the things we covered on Pocket Now was
Sam. Welcome.
Was the story that OEMs could potentially be misrepresenting security patches. If you want, I'll throw that link into chat right away.
Yes, please do. Please do.
It was something we spent quite a bit of time on. We had our 300th episode on Pocket Now, so it was episode 300, and this one was especially upsetting to me because you've got companies that are implicated like Samsung, TCL, HTC, but the thing that's really upsetting is often the phones that were getting the security patch update, but then not having some of the critical vulnerabilities actually patched, were lower cost and older devices. So that's a really bad look when you've got someone who can't afford to go out and buy $1,000 phone. Don't they still deserve the same kind of security patch software support as someone who does, especially in an economy where we're utilizing these phones more and more and more? So it was kind of a frustrating story to cover, because I don't think it's enough for a manufacturer to say like, oh, we've got to balance the cost of the phone against how much support you get. Well, we're creating another Windows XP kind of situation in Android land where you could have, a ton of compromised devices because you've got people on like Galaxy S4 still.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I'm just kind of glancing through the article here, and of course you have this chart that says missing patches, vendors, and if I get that right, lowest ranking in terms of missing patches are Google, Sony, Samsung, and Ricoh, and then it just kind of scales from there upwards.
Correct. So like Google, Sony, Samsung, and Wiko are doing really good. Yeah. Right now, like from 0 to 1 missing bug fixes or missing patches, like they're on top of the list, which I was actually really happy to see Sony and Samsung in there. But when you break it down by device, one of the devices cited was a really cheap, low-cost Sony and a really cheap, low-cost Samsung. So again, it seems to correlate with the quality of the device being sold as to what kind of support it's got. And it's a sentiment that I think we've all shared.
Sure, yeah.
If you get an entry-level phone, you're not expecting operating system updates and you're barely expecting bug fixes. But that's actually not, I mean, that's a bad place. The most vulnerable and the most economically challenged members of our society are already dealing with enough. Now they also have to deal with bug fixes and security updates that don't include the security updates. That's
so here's the question about security updates, because I was thinking, in my mind, I'm going, is this something Google can fix by making it mandatory in a sense where they do that push either directly themselves, or they tell all the manufacturers that, look, when we drop a security patch, you have 2 weeks and you must put it across all your devices, or something like that? Or is it something that some of the security patches have to do with also the overlays these Android manufacturers also have as well? So it becomes a little bit more difficult to apply those patches.
We tried to posit some sort of hypothesis as to what we thought would fix the situation, and we kind of got stuck in that same pattern there. Google started Android with this really nifty notion that they wouldn't step on manufacturers, that you could do anything you wanted with Android, and that the only major concession they made is if you didn't meet a certain set of requirements, then you couldn't use Google Apps. And operating system update by update, like into Android P, there are a few more stricter requirements for being a certified Android device. There was a little bit of a brouhaha over Oreo and whether or not you were going to be a Project Treble compatible phone. And that's why we saw phones launching at the end of 2017 that were running Nougat, because if you install Oreo directly out of the box, then you have to be Treble compliant. And for whatever reason, manufacturers decided that they didn't want to have to hassle with that, so they would launch with Nougat with an Oreo update right around the corner, which to me just doesn't make any sense if you're trying to operate in good faith between Google and your customers. So we can see that they are taking steps to try and reclaim Android, but this still doesn't seem their initiative here doesn't really seem to have worked to the same degree, because to your scenario, you could say like, hey, here's the next security update. You've got 2 weeks to do it, or bad things will happen to you, even though you've already sold these devices. They're already out in the ecosystem. And we've got companies that are literally putting out security updates that tick over when you go into the about screen on your phone, and then they don't really have all of the updates. So I don't know what fixes that, except for maybe like slashing and burning Android to the ground and starting fresh with like a Project Fuchsia, where you mandate a completely different relationship between manufacturer and software developer. Like if you can get to a point where it's like Microsoft, for better for worse, when there's a problem with an update in Microsoft land, you're not turning to HP, you're not turning to ASUS. You know who to be mad at. And here it's still so wide open. This is still one of the gross immaturities of the Android platform.
Sam, any thoughts?
I'm looking at this, and there's a part of the article that actually kind of catches my attention that makes me a little bit more hopeful. The whole idea that Google did point out, it's basically the part where it says Google tells Wired that it's working with SRL and appreciates the data it has obtained. However, the company also chipped some discounts, I don't even understand that, to the data. Basically, what they're trying to say here is that the company also mentioned some little caveats to the data that was collected, suggesting that some of the devices tested were not made to certified standards, and that some patches weren't included because the vendor found another solution to fix a vulnerability. So a lot of these devices, yes, you're right, a lot of these devices are cheaper devices, are devices that might not meet the hardware or sometimes even the software standards that Google has set. But they have found some workarounds to providing the same patches, the same protections for these vulnerabilities. So this kind of, to me, this makes the data a little skewered now, saying if you don't account for those situations, do these numbers change significantly? My guess is probably not. It probably doesn't change that significantly. And I think this is a problem that Android has had for a while with the fragmentation of Android. We all need to figure out exactly what is Android. Do we all need an option to have vanilla Android on our device, and then, the ability to then update directly from Google, regardless of what kind of hardware we have? It's a question out there I think no one has been able to answer so far, but I think it's a question that we all need to be asking, and that these hardware manufacturers need to look at seriously if we're in a world right now where, software breaches and software vulnerabilities are going to be commonplace.
Yeah, true. It's going to be very interesting and a very weird mix-up. Just because Android has not matured on that aspect, and Android has not. Google needs to rein that back in. As you said, with each update, they've tried to do some of that, where there should be very set guidelines for manufacturers. But hopefully that changes. But let's head to our first topic. Facebook was on Capitol Hill, and I want to hear from you guys, also you guys in the chat. How would you grade Mark Zuckerberg's performance or at least the way he handled himself in Congress? Keep all your robot jokes aside and all your data jokes aside, and If you
Well, I mean,
believe
because the
it.
thing is, it's easy to keep those aside because he's obviously a lizard, not a robot.
He's a lizard person.
He's a
Code.
lizard.
I mean, you know, like he was drinking water. Robots don't need to drink water, so.
I mean, but then again, it depends on how advanced this robot is. Is this an LMD?
Do you see how easy it was to draw you into
I
whether
know,
or not
right? I jumped back in. I had to.
I love it. I saw this one comic which was a riff on Rick and Morty, where it's like, so let me get this straight, the cold I forget, I'm gonna butcher this quote, but it's like, so the simple cold-blooded lizard part of you is balanced by your cyborg robot cold-hearted metal side of you. And you're like, oh well, look, they're talking about Mark Zuckerberg. And then Kyle in the chat is talking, you know, brought up the booster seat too, just all kinds of awkward. And I don't understand, you know, I'm sure he had to have had some prep for this, but he could not have looked less human in this situation than if he tried. I mean, I know he's trying to keep it all together. He's got cameras shoved in his face. This is an intense and a stressful moment, but you know, it didn't instill me with a lot of confidence in his ability to deal with these issues in a public sphere. You know, however brilliant a coder he might be, what fiefdom he's created with Facebook, what business or organizational skills and savvy he might have, you know, like an Elon Musk in a similar situation, I think would have been a lot more engaging and you know, able to put senators' fears at ease. You know, I think this looked like that stereotypical old people grilling a geek, you know. And that's not a good look for tech. if that's what we're doing. So these kids with their social media and who's still using the Facebooks, and you're like, they are woefully ill-equipped to deal with this, but they're just bullying a geek right now. And I am no fan of Zuckerberg, but this looks bad for all of us.
I do agree on that point, and I think that's why I give him an A-. I think he went for exactly that. I think the booster seat thing, I think Congress is just how the tables are, and they like to make you feel small. That's just the idea. So he was like, no. But then, to me, whoever
makes him look like a little kid.
Yeah, but I think whoever is his team crafted the exact message he wanted. He wanted to look like the guy trying to teach grandparents, like how everybody has how the internet works, and they don't get it. And that's where
I don't think he went for that. I think that's just the fact of the matter.
No. I agree. I agree that's a fact of the matter, but that's also a team thing. Trust me. When you're on this level, your team wants you to portray some of that. I'm not saying it's a full on stage.
I don't think his team wants him getting into Congress and trying to piss Congress off by belittling them in any way. I think what his team did, and what his team did extremely well, was basically creating an atmosphere where he recognized that they were part of the solution, and that and then these lawmakers have to follow up with them, you know, because he was not the central point of decision making. I think that was very clear from him, because once he came out and he basically said, hey, I take responsibility. If you hear all the questions that he didn't answer, it was always, I'll have my team follow up with you on that. All the suggestions that were made that he couldn't address right then, it was, I'll have my team follow up.
No. I agree on that aspect. I'm talking about optics. Look, there are two teams on this thing. In terms of,
I think you're giving Congress way too much credit to make them think as though someone crafted it in any way. You guys don't know shit about Facebook.
No, I'm not giving them credit. See, that's what you answering my thing here. I'm not giving them credit. I'm saying his team realized that they don't have that skill set. And they said, let us move. You can move them there. You can actually move grandpa and grandma there when they will ask you silly questions. And you just have to answer them in this order, which is why you see how poignant, and you could say composed, you could call it scared, but he took his time to answer even the dumbest question by Orrin Hatch, who is like, you know,
on the first day of interviews,
free service. How do you make money? And he goes, you could see in his head going, really? And he goes, slow, composed, and then a smile. Granted, it still looked robotic, but again, that to me felt like the team or Facebook knew exactly where Congress was, and they applied that way. I mean, it's all optical. It's on the optical placement to say this is what you're going to get. Plus, there's lobbying money. Let's throw that in
there. I personally,
I'm just saying, it's a game.
I think Congress. I think this idea that Congress was somehow, handled by Zuckerberg and his team is giving Congress a little bit too much of a credit. I think we should really all be very shocked at the fact that we have men and women who lead this country and who make legislation regarding technology that have no idea about how this is not even technology now, a simple business model works.
No, but why should we be shocked? We already know.
No, it's not just that we should be shocked. It's not. We didn't know that they did not understand that business model. Not understanding the technology is one thing. Not understanding the kind of access is one thing. But not understanding the core principles of just business. These are lawyers. These are businessmen. These are people who have been in government for how many ever decades. Now they're just phoning it in.
Sometimes you forget.
They're not even trying anymore. They're just phoning it in. And just so you realize this, right? It's not just a senator asking this question. A senator, a congressman, has a team of people who work with them on these things. They don't act alone. So not only were they not prepared, their teams were not prepared. And they're basically trying to give this idea that they were trying to help the American people. You can't help me. If I understand more of the situation than you do, you cannot help me. Okay, in fact, you basically make it worse for me when we have to take 10 steps back to get you up to speed.
Now, here's the other part, right? I want to throw the lobbying money in there. The reason why is because we do know Facebook lobbies. We know all these companies lobby. So how much of that affected this hearing? I don't know specifically who. There are people from the other side saying, well, Facebook does lobby quite a bit. So these are senators, and I know people have put out lists of certain senators who've taken contributions from Facebook. So they're going to throw softer questions. They might throw dumb questions.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. They love some really cheap, easy questions to mark. And the first 5 questions are like, seriously, guys?
Yeah, but that's how it plays, and that puts us at a disadvantage. And granted, again, it becomes this very interesting stage where Facebook will do, as in aka Zuckerberg will go there and try to do whatever is best for his business and company, right? And he will try and say the right things, but also there is that background play, and it almost defeats the purpose of whether you even have somebody in Congress or not that is of age or understands technology, especially when that funding comes into play. So, I mean, to me, in terms of his grade, like I said, I give it an A-. I was going to say Sam, but then I was looking at Juan because he was on mute, and I don't know why.
I'm so congested, so I'm trying to mute in between so that you guys don't hear so much biology coming out of my nose.
I see.
Yeah.
But Sam, since you've as Cal said, you've gone on a rant a little bit. What would you give his grade? At least the way he came off.
Realistically, the way he answered the question, I'll grade him on two things: the content of his answers and the way he comported himself. The way he comported himself was very good. Whether he seems robotic or not, don't forget that you're standing in the presence of some of the most powerful people in your country. It's amazing that he was able to be composed. He didn't stutter. He wasn't, sweating excessively. He was very well trained for that. And I don't even think being in a boardroom, I don't think being one of the richest people in the world, I don't think that prepares you for sitting down with some of the most powerful people in the most powerful nation on the face of this planet. So I'll definitely give him an A for that. Now, the contents of his answers, I would definitely give him a solid C, because there are a lot of things that he could have mentioned. There are a lot of things Congress should have mentioned that both sides just didn't seem to come to the table with the idea of actually bringing solutions to bear. I saw people congratulating themselves for asking questions. I saw people congratulating themselves on the Facebook side for answering weak questions. I saw people basically giving up the idea that we live in a society that supports a free market, and basically just willy-nilly and without any pushback whatsoever, just giving up accepting the idea that regulations need to come down. No idea that you need to maybe try harder to self-police yourself. You basically just lob it to the government. I give them a solid C because I didn't like anything I heard content-wise from both sides.
Okay, so A for presentation, C for content. How about you? So that gives him a B overall.
Like, take the average and the story.
Yeah. How about you, Juan?
So actually, I think I'm going to be the almost the exact polar opposite of Sam, while also adding in 1 grade to help sort of specify why I'm giving these grades.
Ooh,
so in terms of his answers, I'm going to give him an A. Because he answered every crap question that Congress put in front of him. So for Congress, I'm going to give for the committee, I'm going to give them a D- because they asked terrible questions.
Okay.
And Mark Zuckerberg did a phenomenal job. The content of his answers were phenomenal for such terrible questions in this arena. But for the style, like I said at the beginning, for the style, that the way that he comported himself, I'm going to give him a C-. It's again, there's a thing about geeky smart people in American culture. So for us, we can appreciate why he conducted himself the way he did.
Mm-hmm.
But if geek is chic and tech has taken over, and now tech has infiltrated every waking moment of daily lifestyle for people who are into this stuff and people who just need to use it, his demeanor and his manner still made us look like the stereotypical nerd boys whinging on about problems. It doesn't help us in conversations like net neutrality. It doesn't help us in other arenas. And we got a Mark Zuckerberg for this conversation when we probably needed more of an Elon Musk. Someone who's cooler, who's more captivating. I hate to say it, but we've lost the cool kids lunch table. Tech has moved on to, the prettier people who are more engaging and more interesting and more fun to be around. That's unfortunately, I think that still sets us back when a Mark Zuckerberg looks so alien to anyone who might be watching this. So again, I'm no fan of Zuckerberg, and I don't like Facebook, and I don't really use Facebook except for just auto posting, like just vomiting whatever I'm posting on other platforms to Facebook too. But if we're really going to move the needle on this with the general public, then we either need lawmakers who are more engaged on this subject. Not that I expect 60-year-old white men to be
let's correct that,
edge. 75-year-old white men to be cutting edge on this, but it's also apparent and very clear and painfully clear that their staff isn't even on the pulse for this. That's not okay. For most of what our elected officials do, they are just read into the situation. They do not have firsthand knowledge. They're too busy fundraising for their next election cycle. But their committees, their staff, they aren't even on the pulse for this to be able to meaningfully read in a senator or a House member to be engaged in this conversation. And that's terrible. That needs to change. But along the way, it's just, I think, a failure on all points. This became the bread and circuses. Let's make fun of the nerd talking to old people. And that's essentially what we got out of this. There's not going to be any substantive change to public policy. We're not going to get smarter laws out of this. We're not going to get consumer protections out of this. There could have been an entire debate as to whether or not social media needs to handle consumer information like credit card companies. Like what kind of regulations do we need to put on this industry? And we were woefully ill-equipped to handle that from the government side. And Mark Zuckerberg did nothing to reassure us from the social media side. So this is just the saddest display where we're going to get tasty memes that feel like we have some kind of discussion or some kind of commentary to be had, but more it's just the mocking of the elderly and the mocking of the nerd. And that's not how we're going to have any. It becomes a critical win for Facebook because it was just a distraction. Facebook doesn't have to change a damn thing now. but we got to feel really good that we stuck it to Mark Zuckerberg by painting him data colors and calling him a robot.
Yeah, but I think there was one thing that did come out of this, and I think the one question that was asked that that I think should have been where I think the conversation would have finally gotten to some substance in it was when I've forgotten who the senator was or the congressman, and he asks, "Do you think what the EU is doing is good? Do you think they're right?" And Mark Zuckerberg goes, "Oh, the Europeans get things right sometimes." Ha ha! What? How funny! But the question there was basically around the right to forget, the right for your data not to follow you for the rest of your life, the right for you to go back and say, I don't want this data that I put out there to exist anymore. And I think that is something that the US needs to look at, as Europe is looking at it already, because in Europe, it's very clear that they have their fingers on the pulse of what social media is and how it's progressing over time, or how it has progressed over time. And in the US, I think we're just really just stuck on platitudes and older people who just don't understand exactly what the consequences of data being out there and easily accessed by sometimes people with bad intent, what kind of impact that could have.
So Sam, I mean, I agree with all the policy. I mean, I don't think you'd find anyone who's tech savvy who would disagree with that. And we also got recent news that Google lost the next round in their battle against right to forget. That's all great. Do you really feel like just bringing that up from one senator who didn't detail everything that you just said, which would have been an amazing tactical point to bring up in this discussion, a point of substance to bring up in this conversation? All he said is, do you think we should be doing things more like Europe, which is dog whistling for the American people that, oh, those Europeans are socialists. That's all normies heard when they were in the middle of that conversation is, do we need to crack down on social media like socialists? That's it. I mean, if you bring up Europe and you don't bring up the context that you just brought up, then all of that does is serve to instill a fear point in the conversation that we're going to take away your freedoms. We're going to take away your liberties. And that's it. And again, that's also why Mark Zuckerberg gets to have his write him off, make a little quip, give him a little grin, remember to blink, breathe in, breathe out, I'm not a robot moment right there. Again, it's of no substance. It doesn't move the needle at all. It doesn't actually change policy. And it just brings up a point that we all know is very important and could benefit the American people, but it brings it up in a way that is casually easy to dismiss, is a fear point for Americans when it comes to capitalist versus socialist society. And we just move on. I mean, again, now it does a disservice because it takes us a whole step back when we want to introduce something similar here, because now we have to overcome, like, wait a minute, isn't this that thing they're doing in the Europes? And you're like, well, yeah, but it still doesn't mean it's not a bad idea. So,
yeah, but I think the clear point I was trying to make was that was a clear missed opportunity, and I think that's where everyone who witnessed this, congressional, I would say, dog and pony show should have finally said, okay, this has no meaning whatsoever. That was a question.
Yeah, but you brought it up. You did bring up the point originally to say what gave you a little hope was
no. I said where this conversation could have turned a little bit to something more serious. What gave me a little hope?
I bet if we go back and rewatch this video, and
when I said it gave me a little hope, when I said when I mentioned being hopeful, I was hopeful at the fact that the whole idea that some of these conversations that are happening are actually taking place and people are actually looking at this whole thing as overall as a conversation. But that particular question right there almost gave me hope in the fact that it was good. Someone was going to ask a serious question, but then it just veered away. It was a missed opportunity. And there were several of those missed opportunities because there were people who asked questions about legislation they're trying to put forward. I think this is legislation very similar to how consumer information and social network information were going to be treated. And this is something they could have focused more on, but she mentioned it without giving any more details on it. I've forgotten what the congressperson's name was. There were several of these items that could have come out and been more substantive. There were several points where Mark Zuckerberg could have been like, hey, maybe we shouldn't throw government and regulations into the solution yet, because we are capable of policing ourselves, because we are capable of doing things that help help our consumers. But they didn't do that because to them, we're not paying customers. And and the fact that we're not paying customers mean they can basically do whatever they can. They're not going to get sued by anyone because at the end of the day, the people who pay them, the people who get your data, the Cambridge Analyticas of the world, are basically getting the value they pay for. And we are just hapless users that give them everything for nothing.
Okay, and on that point, we've spent a lot of time on Facebook, and just to let you know, full disclosure, I do own Facebook stock, so I was happy that the stock price went up.
Oh, heck yeah.
That is besides the point.
Oh, don't get me wrong, Facebook's doing good for my bottom line. But I still think there can be a lot more
at the end of the discussion. You notice that. I was not lobbying during this conversation whatsoever. Speaking of somebody who is making amends to some of his mistakes, the great Elon Musk you mentioned earlier has now finally admitted that he is an underrated human being, and Tesla's excessive automation is a mistake because the company is going through some serious financial at this point in time because they want to automate everything. But his statement here was in response to Tim Higgins, who says he agrees Tesla is relying on too many robots to make the Model 3. They need more workers. Yes, excessive automation at Tesla was a mistake. To be precise, my mistake. Humans are underrated. This has always been my own personal problem with Elon Musk. Like I said, I've always said the guy is a great dreamer. He can push out so well, but sometimes he just overdoes shit. And which is why with the Model 3, everybody praised that. And I looked and I said, I don't see this going anywhere because I don't think this company is built for this. He has a bigger vision in mind. He keeps skipping what he should do than his bigger vision, then going to his bigger vision. But what do you think of his comments here? Sorry, I'm actually going to put it here in the chat so you guys can see.
Cool.
But yeah, Tesla has faced mounting public pressure amid production slowdowns of its Model 3. It's lowered its price. The company recently revealed that it misses targets to produce 2,500 cars a week, which is disappointing investors. The uncertainty has resulted in the volatile stock. A month ago, the shares were trading at 340. Now it's slid to 252.
Okay. That's good.
So, thoughts?
I'm not even going to go to the stock price thing because I think Tesla's been highly overrated stock-wise. But at the end of the day, I think what he's doing here is something he doesn't quite do often, which is his mea culpa. And I think here he's showing, I think this is more to the people who spend that $5,000 to put a down payment on their car, people who are beginning to lose faith in him. This is more towards them because he's telling people he's sleeping at the factory. And if he's sleeping at the factory, and this is something that I can basically definitely believe that he would do because his autobiography basically has instances of where he just sleeps at a factory, sleeps at the office. And, if he's doing that, then he's basically dedicated to fixing this issue. He acknowledges the fact that automation didn't quite work. The system of conveyor belts and robots are just not working. He's basically scrapping all that and trying to rework the production process. But at the end of the day, I don't know how this hits the Model 3 as a whole. Because the reviews of the cars that people have seen might have one or two quirks here and there, but I think overall it's been really positive. If he can keep a steady stream of positive news about the product itself while he reworks the whole production issue, then he might be able to get out of this without too much of a headache.
I mean, when you talk about the reviews, I do not like any of the reviews because it's skewed. It's all tech guys. It's not car guys. It's not.
I mean, a lot of the people reviewing are like, look at the car I bought. I have a vested interest in making myself feel good about the purchase I just made.
Because the Model 3 is meant for the everyday consumer.
Yep.
None of the reviews.
But that's the thing. The everyday consumer is not going to get their hands on one for quite some time.
No. I'm saying that if you look at Car and Driver has not dropped anything. I'm just saying the people who actually count for this. And car reviews are very different from what we do in tech. I've seen I saw Engadget's kind of review on it, and they did.
And The Verge has a pretty good review on it. Yeah.
Where I was like, okay, I'm glad you guys have mentioned the fact that this center console is dumb.
I haven't liked it from day one. I still don't like it.
It is a very dumb, unsafe thing.
Not even just unsafe, unintuitive.
No, forget the unintuitive. It is unsafe because if I want to switch my wiper blades, I have to go through 3 menu options and look center instead of looking in my screen. I mean, not looking straight ahead. I mean, unless, of course, if I was driving in the middle of the car, I mean, sure. But,
maybe that's the plan, to get everyone driving at the middle of the car. No, and it's even looking at your speed too, like the speedometer. All your readings are on that screen. And there are buttons that from all the reviews I've seen, there are buttons that you could use to do the same function, but because they're so tech heavy, they're so futuristic looking heavy, they basically go with the on-screen option instead. So I think these are things that software updates might resolve, but overall I think the people who have it in hand right now, the people who are doing the reviews, are the people who've plunked down money earlier to get this car. And yes, it is skewered towards them, but the people who are going to be looking for the reviews of this car are people who are already interested in a car like this. Because EVs aren't like, EVs might be more popular in the world right now, but it's a specific kind of person that wants to drive an EV.
Yeah, true. But the thing is that the reason why this car brought so much buzz and helped move this market cap, which I consider very ridiculous at $50.7 billion for a company that does not have a functioning full line of mid-range cars. This is rubbish. I'm sorry. I mean,
that's why I said the stock price is just way inflated.
So the reason why the Model 3 was so big was because this is the first time the average, not just the people who dropped 5K, the average consumer said, wait, so Tesla, that cool, expensive $100,000 car, they've now made a $45,000 version? I can buy it? Okay, let's see how it is. Now, will this take me away from remember, my Honda and Toyota? Those are the 2 key they are facing here. Nobody's talking about that in any of these articles. Is that you have to, those people are looking at what they're doing, and clearly they produced a car that, I'm sorry, Sam, it doesn't matter what software updates you do. The fact that you have to do this, even if it's one button.
No. I'm saying the software update might actually, there are buttons on the steering wheel.
Okay, even if you
put the software update to do that, to basically.
But even that, again, you said it
right. But you're talking about what's possible versus.
That's what I'm saying. I'm saying right now it's unintuitive. So it could be fixed later on down the road. But now it's still very
intuitive. The wiper blades, you can fix the lights.
So I want to take a step back aside from the actual talking about the reviews, talking about the car, to getting back to talking about Elon Musk, because that right there, Sam, I think is indicative of one of the traps that Tesla finds itself in total. I'm still very positive on this company. I'm still very excited about this company, and truth be told, it's highly likely that when our next car goes, even we kind of got set back when I had my accident a little bit more than a year ago, but my next car will probably be a Tesla. Warts and all, even though I'm not very positive on some of these lifestyle issues. But one of the traps that I think Elon Musk and Tesla find themselves in, change for change's sake, to keep up the mantle of looking techie and high tech and cool. And this philosophy goes from the top down. So look at every little instance where this has backfired on them, from the manufacturing of the car to the implementation of features in the car to how you relate and do business with your customers, all the way down. This works in an exciting way. One of the reasons why their market cap is so high is because stocks are usually just based as much on speculation as they are in actual performance. So this helps you keep up a super cool image, and you're selling that image, and investors want to invest in the image. So that's awesome. But then you have the realities of like, well, how do I change the radio station, or how do I control the windshield wipers? That gets in your way. And I think they've fallen prey to that in the manufacturing of the vehicle as well. Now, that being said, Elon Musk saying human labor is underrated is accurate in this moment. But what do we know about an outlet like Tesla, or what do we know about the general sort of high-tech manufacturing segment once they get around some of these challenges on the Model 3, and once they throw in some more human labor, they'll find where their automation deficiencies were, and they'll crush those deficiencies. And the next generation of the car will take a step up back towards the extreme automation side of this equation. You don't come back to human labor very often, ever in history, as a way to solve some of these problems. You learn your lesson, and then the next generation of the product will benefit from that knowledge. So this is a very small failure here, which will ultimately lead to much better manufacturing and machining later on.
Yeah, I do agree. The Model 3 is like taking off the headphone jack on your cell phones. Dumb.
I mean, in a way. I agree. It's wherever you fall on that line of the debate for progress. I don't see progress here. I see you've changed things that didn't need to be changed. But ultimately, what I mean moving forward is, once Tesla, they've admitted that they needed more humans in the manufacturing process to meet their deadlines. But once they figure out where those deficiencies were, once they figure out automation ways to get around some of those problems, and they lobster pot back up to a more extreme automation manufacturing process. Because a part of this could also be just like how the car is actually designed. Look at some of those wacky companies that are making like 3D printed cars. Once Tesla kind of jumps on some of those other problem solving issues, once they've had the time to fix them, we can be pretty sure that every other automaker in this sector is going to look at similar ways to reduce human labor costs.
Mm-hmm.
That is always going to be the driving trend in a market, is how do you streamline costs, and how do you retool, and how do you make your manufacturing plant more flexible so that the retooling process isn't prohibitively expensive either. And Tesla will lead the way there. Tesla will inform the rest of the industry as to how they can also cut costs and reduce human labor. So this is another, I think, just another link in a long chain of looking at automation, AI, smart driving, or self-driving vehicles. We're at the precipice. We're at the peak of how we respect human labor and how we value the human contribution. And the job market is going to get rocked over the next decade, and it's going to be bad. And these corporations aren't planning for an ever evaporating middle class when they're the ones most responsible for impacting the job market to this degree.
That is very true. Moving on to, I guess, something that could be exciting, even though we know about the device already. LG has officially set the date for its G7 ThinQ.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yes. So any thoughts on the launch, the device? You excited? You not excited? You want to go back to Tesla? You tell me.
I'll throw it out there because we talked about this on Pocket Now too. I'm very anxious about where LG's at and what they're going to deliver. I want to be excited. The G series was, since the G4 was my jam until the V10 came out. The G series has increasingly not been the phone for me. I want to see cool V phones, which we also saw rumors on a V35. If we can talk about that too after we cover the G. But where they've been floundering, the will they won't they, the major problems with this company don't seem to be getting addressed. How do you communicate with consumers? How do you differentiate yourself from competitors? How do you advertise? And then how do you support on the back end? And we see these half-hearted attempts at addressing some of these problems for a short period of time, like software updates. They're creating these centers to update phones to new operating systems, and you're like, I guess that's cool, but I want to see more effort made to actually producing the software. I don't think the pain point was people not knowing how to update their phones. The pain point was they didn't have software to update their phones.
Mm-hmm.
So those types of things keep getting in the way of a company with an amazing amount of talent. They've finally landed on a hardware aesthetic and design and a feature set which resonates with their fans, and they keep getting in their own way in actually delivering. Like they can't make it past they keep fumbling on the 1 yard line over and over and over again. And how many downs are we going to give them before we say it's like, okay, you need to give the ball to the other team?
Sam, any thoughts on the G7 ThinQ May 2nd? Ready for that? Yeah,
Not even. I'm not going to be getting one. I'm not really that interested in one, so I don't know. I guess I'll wait and see what the reviewers say, and maybe go to the store and look at it when it comes out. But right now, I'm not really excited about it.
Okay, that's a fair point. The one question I want to ask you guys before we move away from this is that May is going to be an interesting month. We know ThinQ, G7 ThinQ is coming out. It's going to be announced on May 2nd. Rumblings is that same very week. The OnePlus 6 will be announced because OnePlus is doing a special edition with Avengers for the OnePlus 6.
Woohoo! Avengers. Oh, not OnePlus, but Avengers.
August 27th, they said they might just show the special edition color, not the whole device, but which means their launch event is going to be around the same week. Rumors, it's actually the very next day. That's where the rumors are standing. And then HTC also has announcements that month as well. Who do you think will win in the month of May? Because the month of May is going to be LG, HTC, and OnePlus.
I say OnePlus. Simply because they have Avengers. That's it. I say they win.
Okay. How about you, Juan?
I know I would agree. When you have the marketing tie-in with something like a giant Marvel crossover franchise, that it's highly likely that they'll take the month. But when we say win, I mean, we're talking really low table stakes for all three of these companies against juggernauts like Samsung and Apple, which I think will still grossly outsell all three combined individually.
Oh, I mean, I'm not going in that direction. I really meant like between those three, because I look at it as being LG still is a bigger company than OnePlus, even though OnePlus has a bigger parent company called Oppo.
Right, but again, that's kind of what I was leading to, is in terms of winning. LG will still probably likely outsell OnePlus in that month based on the enormous portfolio of entry-level, mid-range, and then having a flagship phone to talk about at the same time. If we're talking about worldwide distribution, OnePlus hasn't shown that they can scale. But I'm going to give the win to OnePlus because I bet more people will be talking about, for however brief, because it's probably only going to be a day or two for each phone, that general consumers are even entertaining the conversation on these three companies, that OnePlus will have the staying power because of a Marvel tie-in. None of this has anything to do with the devices. None of this has anything to do with the features, the phones, even the price points. It's just OnePlus stands to gain more mind share in this 1 month because of something that doesn't have anything to do with their phone.
But don't they do a better job in at least delivering their message as opposed to the other two companies?
Oh, no, they absolutely do.
Yeah.
But that hasn't translated into outselling LG in the past. And again, this is also going to be a pain point for OnePlus because they're probably going to be severing the goodwill of a good chunk, not a majority, but a good chunk of the fans that they've picked up because of their previous, flagship killer status. They're going to, in one generation, they're going to pivot from a decent savings, like kind of the upper tier of the mid-range market, to the lower end of the flagship market. In one generation, they're probably going to be jacking their price up to a point which is going to feel distasteful to some of their diehard geek brethren. And again, they're going to walk away from geek. You've got to pivot to the mainstream. Enthusiasts don't make you money. So that's going to be what the interesting part of this conversation is. LG is scrambling just to stay relevant in the conversation. HTC likewise. OnePlus could potentially be sacrificing enthusiasts to go mass market. And right now, they're the only company that seems interested in actually reaching out to new consumers, not tech geeks, in a way that is meaningful and is emotionally resonating with consumers.
Ronald Collins says, if OnePlus can get past that credit card data breach.
I mean, they did. They did. They got past that. They got past the what was it? The user data. When you say you want to be a part of like improving products and stuff, and they had user identifiable data saved in plain text on a Chinese cloud server. There was no law enforcement advisory against OnePlus or Oppo. There was no critical warning. A couple tech news sites said, "Oh yeah, if you did business with OnePlus, your credit card was probably breached." And sad trombone. Consumers aren't aware of any of that.
Congress didn't bring anyone up to answer questions.
No one was concerned about this Chinese manufacturer, doing business in the United States. No one cared. And so they're not going to go into an Avengers tie-in. If this Avengers thing pans out, they're not going into it with any baggage. They're going to be a fresh new company that consumers have never heard of, making these exciting products and Iron Man.
Send pictures of yourself as
they get
Iron
the benefit
Man.
of all that. Whereas like the geeks are going to savage HTC. The geeks are going to savage LG.
Yeah.
Every the G7 could be the most amazing phone in the world, and everyone's going to be tripping over themselves to talk about boot loops on the G4. So they're going to go in with enthusiasts literally crawling and grabbing and zombified, like pulling them back down into the mud. Whereas OnePlus is going to get the benefit of the few people that are still willing to talk positively about the brand. We're hardcore enthusiasts who were happy about the bang for buck they used to get with OnePlus, and they're just disappointed that the phones cost more now. Well, we all know you raise the price on a product, and consumer psychology would seem to suggest that it's a better quality product, so that's a good win for OnePlus. They can weather that storm. That's easy. Oh, they're making a better phone? Okay, well, I'll take them seriously now. And it could be exactly the same phone. They just, jacked up the price tag.
Okay. All right. Speaking of price tags that people might have to pay, Samsung is being sued yet again by another company for the amount of $3 billion for biometric patent infringement. The lawsuit is from a Texas company called Passive Technologies, a U.S. data encryption company. According to the filing, Samsung has infringed on 3 patents on biometric data encryption. The compensation claimed to reach about $2.82 billion. Passive Technologies claims that most flagships models include S6, S6 Edge, S7, S7 Edge, S8, S8 Plus. Were equipped with the software that ran the infringing data encryption. This includes biometric operating system pass and the in-house platform Knox. I'm surprised that no Galaxy Note device is in here. That's just the first thing so Samsung was just switching out the technology or patents for the Galaxy Notes.
I mean, it's entirely possible because again, it could be they have a very specific. I don't know.
Yeah, it's really weird. I'm trying to find out information about this Pack ID company, and I can't find anything on them. I don't want to go straight out and say these are patent trolls because I don't know this company. I've tried to find out more information, but the information is just not there. So the question is, who are these guys, and why do they think that across like 3 generations of of flagship devices, specifically the flagship devices that most consumers go for, not the Note that's more driven towards professionals. Why do they think they deserve a cut of that? If Samsung has been infringing on their patents, the S6 came out when? What, in 2014, 2015? So
something like that.
Yeah. So why this long? Why so long? I'm really curious to see exactly how this pans out because right now I just can't find any information about them.
The case might also hit LG, Google, and Amazon.
Yeah, because they're all part of the FIDO.
FIDO, yeah. So,
which again, it really does speak to a company that got their fingers on one tiny little, like if there were 1 million lines of code responsible for a Samsung fingerprint reader, that they've got a patent on 3.
Yeah, exactly, and that's the case. And it just, again, for me, it just strikes it funny that the Note is not included. As a device, or even any other Samsung devices, really, like the A line, which should have the same. But anyway, I mean,
I wouldn't expect that they would, because it's FIDO, right? The standard. There's a standard for how these things are handled, right? So that should go across almost every single device that Samsung has. So why pick just their high-selling
$100 billion lawsuit?
Exactly. There's a huge question mark here, and I'm not really clear if this is just software only or software and hardware. So it's very. This is interesting. This Pack ID technologies. I just need to find out more about them. I just can't find anything about them right now.
Yeah. All right, moving on. We'll wait and see. These lawsuits go for a while. So probably at the end of the year when we see fingerprint sensor underneath the screen, that maybe uses either Qualcomm or Synaptics stuff, it might be a whole different case. But the S9 is not included there, as well as the Note 8. Android will have its own dongle for Android TV. Android TV has been picking up steam for a while now. You know, Google's Android TV is on Sony TVs. A bunch of other manufacturers are picking up. A lot of the new Chinese TV brands are using it because, let's be honest, some of their TV OSs are terrible. And it looks like Android TV dongle passed through FCC with Oreo, remote assistant remote, and Google logo, and it looks like a puck with a dongle.
Oh, so they're remaking the Chrome to actually do what the Chrome should have been doing for the longest time?
Chromecast?
Yay! The Chromecast 2.0, doing what it should have been doing since day one.
Yeah. I mean, Amazon really owns the dongle TV market right now. And this would be interesting to see how this pans through. Any just general thoughts before we move on? Because it seems like it's you know, clear standard product.
Okay, so I've we just recently got a Samsung Smart TV, and there's still plenty of times where I prefer going through a Chromecast. Like Netflix, for example. I don't like scanning, trying to find something to watch on a Netflix app on a TV through a remote. But there are some times where it actually works out better. Like funnily enough, the Google TV app on the Samsung TV is better than the app on the phone. But for the most part, I don't like the TV style browsing experience. I like going through a phone because I know how all of those apps work, and I know how to search really quickly instead of having to type on a TV keyboard or try and use like voice actions, which work in some apps but not in others. This is to me where I find it kind of interesting. I thought Google was really pivoting more towards the Chromecast experience and focusing on the app and phone control versus the traditional set-top box experience with Android TV. It would appear that I was wrong.
Yes, you are.
I don't know if this significantly changes you know, how they approach, you know, something like Chromecasting, because I'm pretty sure this is going to have the ability to cast, right? And with casting, the thing that really that really to me stands out when about Google is the fact that I can watch a Google a YouTube video on my TV, switch to my computer and pick right up because it has my history there. I can just go to history and click on it, or go to my phone and do the same thing. So I can basically pick up wherever I am. But this whole idea that I have something connected to my TV whose sole functionality is just so that I can stream something through it without the ability to sometime not have my phone on me or to have my phone charging while, you know, I want to search on that same app and find a video through the hardware natively. I think it's a handicap for the Chromecast right now, and I think this to me is a step in the right direction for them. I think they've recognized it. I think it's a little late, but I think it's a step in the right direction.
For me, I'm completely the opposite of both of you. I do not like Chromecast. I prefer the TV app. For me, I can easily find what I want to.
But do you think this is going to be for people who have access to that TV app that's working perfectly, or this is going to be for people who, like you said, bought like a TV from Asia that doesn't have all the features or doesn't have
Chromecast? It's the Chromecast people who want who now feel like they don't want to cast from their phones anymore, and want something a little bit dedicated. It's also for those people who have an older TV set, a manufacturer that they just don't like the OS. It was cheaper, a cheaper TV set, and they could go, okay, Android TV. I know that, I have an Android 4 and I have that ecosystem. I can jump into it. So I think it falls on that, for a lot of people on that basis, which I think makes a lot of sense. I agree. It's a little late, but I think Google is going to hand these things out like they hand out the Google Home Mini. And before you know it, everybody's gonna have it. CES really proved to me how Google wants to do things to dominate the market. Walking to CES and seeing Google Home everywhere. It was, every booth had a Google Home integration, even if you were selling paper. At CES.
Google Home.
Yeah. If you say paper, if you say, hey Google, give me paper, the paper will come out because courtesy of Google Home. So that's the kind of thing that I see. But I do agree. I mean, like, it all depends on your preference and style for how you use it. I will say I would suggest this to you, Juan, when you use your Samsung TV, is on Netflix. When you go to the app, just go up one level. It will have all your recent shows there, unless of course you want to just browse. That's the only other thing.
I know where to find the things I'm already watching.
I'm just telling you how to use it, okay?
No, I'm saying that this is a problem both with the Netflix and with how Netflix customizes their apps.
Oh yeah, the app
Netflix has a bad problem with discovery.
Oh, it's terrible.
It's terrible. So you compound that by giving me a 4-pad D switch or a touchscreen. So if discovery is already terrible in a Netflix app, making me click, 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 click to try and find something is way worse than slide, slide, slide.
That's true. That's true.
So it's those kinds of things that actually keep me coming back to Chromecast. And your ability to cultivate a playlist, really quickly or easily on the fly in YouTube. If I want to stack up, like I haven't watched the last 4 Red Letter Media videos. Pap, 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 broadcast. Good. Done. I can't do that at all in the YouTube app on the Samsung Smart TV. It is not nearly as fluid. And again, a lot of that is because of the click, 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 click. And a lot of this would be easier because this is the division between Samsung and Google. So it's not really any company's fault, but Samsung Smart Actions work really well in some apps where I can click a button on the remote and talk into the remote and get something really quickly that way. But that's not that doesn't work in all apps.
Yeah.
So for example, if I hit the microphone button while I'm in the YouTube app, it allows me to control the TV, but it doesn't do anything for the YouTube app. I have to go up 3 levels over to the magnifying glass, click that, wait for the search to pop up, navigate over to the keyboard, jump around on the keyboard until I can get to the microphone switch, then push the microphone button in the YouTube app, and then I can talk into the remote and do a voice search that way. By the time I've done all that, I'm already watching something if I just pulled it up on my phone.
Yep.
That is true. That is.
Yeah, and the thing, and also the idea that the notifications come up in your phone, regardless when you have them set up, so you can basically start the video and just stream it to your TV, makes it a lot easier as well. Yeah. I find myself doing that sometimes. Yeah,
it's those kinds of things though, but that's also me having to now acknowledge that I probably lost that conversation of convenience, because what I'm talking about in using Chromecast to do all that loading first is unfamiliar to people who are coming from traditional DVRs and TiVos.
TVs, yeah.
That they want that kind of DVR TiVo style experience, which I hate, because they're used to it. And I guess Google is probably on the right side here of shifting Chromecast over into a more Android TV style experience. I don't want apps and, loading screens and a UI.
Oh, God, they would have to work on your loading screens, man. They would have to remove loading screens.
When my phone already handles all of that for me in a far more capable, in a far more powerful form, and then all I have to do is just send it up to the dumb screen that I want to send it to. I wanted that future where my content goes anywhere I want it to. I wanted it to be that I just point my phone at my computer monitor and flick, and then it's up on my computer monitor, and I've got my TV over here, and I can just swipe, and then it'll go from my monitor over to my TV.
You have to have the same OS to do that all over.
No, not necessarily. You can do that with YouTube, not flick it, but I can watch.
I can cast it over to my Samsung TV.
No, it is possible, but you have to be logged into the same account on the same website or app all over the place. Yeah.
No, you don't have to be. As long as you can cast. As long as you're connected.
No, I mean for the TV, you have to be in YouTube to be able to do that. To cast from for the computer to cast from the computer YouTube to somewhere else, you have to be in YouTube.
Oh, you have to be on YouTube. I'm saying, but from my phone in my house, come in. As long as you have my Wi-Fi, you can.
Samsung makes it really easy to do that with your TV. They work with a lot of the casting.
So you can cast either your phone or anything off your phone directly to TV. So
Sonos will let you do that with music as well, and a lot of stuff.
That's kind of the point that I'm getting at is. Look at the discussion we just had and the difficulties in just trying to weed out how that might work.
Yeah, it's fragmented.
When we're also dealing with the different metaphors of how to control each of those products. So my computer has a UI, my TV has a UI, my laptop has a UI, my phone has a UI. And what I want to do is start reducing the different numbers of interfaces that we have to encounter, learn, get familiar with, and those frustration pain points. And to me, it made the most sense to start looking at the phone UI, the thing that's sort of ubiquitously always with you, should probably be the primary UI for a lot of your content discovery and content consumption. I gave TV consumers too much credit, that they would want to start walking away from a TiVo-centric or DVR-centric world, that they want that Roku, which is a completely different interface, just because they're familiar with the phallus in their hand of a remote. Whew. And that's how they control everything.
One is just decimating these TV watchers, man. It's like, first of all, I'm wrong because I gave you the benefit of the doubt that you were smart enough and you didn't want to sit on the couch and play with a dick-looking device to control your TV. Okay, okay.
I feel what I said was a hair bit more elegant than that.
Let's just move on.
No, it was very elegant. Very elegant.
I didn't say very. I said just a hair bit more elegant than what you described.
I think what is the way my my mom would normally say? You have to tell what is it? You don't catch flies with vinegar, you catch them with honey, right? So yes, those are some honey words coming from your mouth.
You know what's funny though is because it's starting to get warm in Southern California, so we have these little gnat-like bugs that fly in. That's actually not true. You will catch more bugs with honey. I mean, with vinegar.
Heck yeah. Oh heck yeah!
Vinegar traps are actually way more effective than sugar traps.
Yeah. It's kind of weird.
No, yeah, but that is for gnats. If you want to catch flies, though, it must be sweet.
No, actually, I'm pretty sure like an apple cider vinegar outperforms most sugar.
Nah, man. I've done sugar traps, man. Maybe African flies are different from American flies.
They want that sweet blood.
I'm gonna go there.
I wouldn't be surprised. Like African flies are way more industrious and they're way more discerning. So, they're like, wait a minute. No, that's not sugar.
This is not sweet. This is not sweet.
Vinegar. What are you trying to do? Make me drink vinegar.
Western or European flies are way easier to see.
All right, let's move on. Next quick topic, because we've already started going overboard. Xiaomi announced the Black Shark gaming phone, which
the way you know you've arrived is when Xiaomi starts trying to steal your color template.
Yeah, I know, right?
Overall look.
This is straight up. Let me share my.
Razer has arrived.
This is straight up. This is Razer phone Xiaomi style. I mean, it's green and black. I mean, there's a silver model. It's a 5.99-inch display, 18.9 aspect ratio, LCD, full HD plus resolution.
Is the back of that phone a case or just the way the phone is built? Because that is interesting.
It's the way the phone is built. It's got liquid cooling on that 845 processor to cool the temperatures down to 8 degrees Celsius. When you're intense gaming, 4,000 milliamp battery, micro SD card, 6 gigs of RAM, 64 gigabytes of storage, or up to 128. What else do you have here?
Dang, you can play the hell out of Farmville on that thing.
That was not Farmville, my friend. That was not Farmville. They've also got like this controller attachment. So if you want that physical D-pad, you can have it with your device. Boom, right there. Even the green light to show you how to connect it together. That also has an included 340 milliamp battery.
What?
How you can put the accessory in your pocket, just so you know how to use that. And this is the phone right here. This is what a dual camera at the back. It's called a Black Shark S.
Wow.
Yeah.
I give it to them. This is nice.
Pricing on this is starting at $600. Yeah, making it the cheapest Snapdragon 845 phone up to date.
Pricing starts at $477.
What? Nah.
Where are you reading that? I'm at the 664. The 8 gigabyte. The better version of this is still under $600.
Oh yeah, it's like $557.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Whoa.
Xiaomi don't play around, man.
Razer might have started something, but Xiaomi seems to be trying to take it over real quick.
So I mean, they would have some Razer would have some arguments to be made for things like
The display.
display quality. You know, we'd want to see, this is an 18:9 IPS LCD on the Xiaomi. Will it bring some of those high frame rate benefits that Razer was touting? You have to spend money to make those kinds of improvements. But so many enthusiasts are just going to say, it's got the A45, it's the bestest, and look at the price and go, okay, I'm sold. One of the things that I think is really exciting here, it's very apparent who Xiaomi is drawing inspiration from, and it's not Apple.
Yeah.
That's very exciting, watching Android manufacturers start to crib off of each other. Razer did something really interesting. I don't think they got enough credit for it. And now other manufacturers are taking notice about a market segment which is poised to dominate. I would really like to take this Xiaomi out for a spin on PUBG Mobile.
Yeah, I'd give Xiaomi credit, because if you think about it, even their flagship line didn't copy Apple, or they even set the trend there, especially with just the thin bezels of the mimics. So I think Xiaomi understands at least their market, at least in China where they are. They understand, look, we've got gamers, the mobile market is big. Razer came in and tried to, take that market, but we have a very big audience here, so we can definitely do something with that. And the pricing is really nice.
And at the same time, I think enthusiasts that are looking for something different, that don't just want to blend into the same sort of dichotomy of Apple, Samsung inspired design devices, pulling those ideas out of gaming laptops, which to me, I'm not the biggest fan of Mountain Dew fueled design inspiration. On Newegg, I actually got to play with the new MSI Titan, the 75, and that thing is enormous, and it's got all of those like almost kind of tacky rich supercar design elements, like in how like the heat sinks on the bottom sort of look like a car's front grille, and it's got this like low scoop, but it's really, really thick, and like it's not the right look for me, but it does something really interesting from a design philosophy or a design standpoint to stand out. It is designed to look different, to stand out. And now we've got phone manufacturers starting to dip their toes into similar aspects of design. Nothing about this could ever be confused for another product. And that's kind of a bold idea for a Chinese manufacturer. All too often, Chinese manufacturers are looking at how can we make our phone look imperceptibly similar to an iPhone. This could be a nice swing point. You can always appeal to the gamer audience. You can always appeal to that kind of hardware sentiment. And now we've got something which genuinely resembles nothing else outside of course, like the Razer.
It's. I think at first I was when I initially saw this from the show notes, I was like, knockoff. But then you read through it and you see what it has inside, and this is not a knockoff. This is a competitor. It's a solid competitor to what Razer's putting out there. The Ixo display is definitely going to be a huge differentiator for a lot of people. But it's just really interesting to see in the span of less than 5 years, how mobile gaming is turning into a powerhouse. PUBG and Fortnite are legitimized mobile gaming within the last few months. So having devices like this just makes sense. And seeing that Xiaomi is doing this already, it means we're just going to see more people trying to cut into this market. It'll be interesting to see what the Samsungs of the world, what the LGs of the world, what maybe even HTC, what they actually do. Because I can see HTC playing in this arena, combining this with the headset that they have. There is a market for it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, especially talking to the HTC Vive guys, it doesn't feel like there's any significant pipeline of communication between the Vive and the phone teams, where to your point, Sam, it's such a huge missed opportunity that HTC doesn't even have their own flavor of a Daydream headset powered by Vive. Like, what a missed opportunity.
Vive phone. The Vive phone. That's like a gaming line right there, man. But it just shows that the market has matured. The market has matured.
Sam. This is not the pipe dream episode. Stop.
Yeah, no pipe dreams. No pipe dreams.
Plus,
every pipe dream mentioned here is patented by us, and we will be trademarked by us, and would be required a significant fee to implement. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Let's move on to some vulnerabilities on Outlook. This one was brought to us by Boored. Flaws in Microsoft Outlook lets hackers easily steal your Windows passwords. Security researchers disclosed the details of this vulnerability almost 18 months after receiving the response disclosure report. So Microsoft says they're working on fixing it. It's just one of those things that happen with software now, man.
Yeah, if we're going to live in a world where these things become commonplace, we need to start making sure that these companies are actually more proactive and have the best interests of their consumers at heart. And what's more disturbing about this is a lot of corporate users use Outlook. So Microsoft, if they keep playing, if they don't resolve issues like this, or if they don't take care of issues like this before it becomes common knowledge, they might be opening themselves to some crazy lawsuits, man.
Although this is one of the things that I actually do appreciate about the Microsoft ecosystem is these types of things happen on the regular. It's not very expensive to design an exploit or an attack. Like we're talking about sending a rich text format email message, which can embed a couple specious lines of information that can then somehow get into sensitive information in a user's Outlook account. So that probably took some ingenuity and some software development. But on the flip side, guarding against every single exploit that comes out is going to be an exponentially increasing cost for companies. And the thing that I think we've seen is that once these types of exploits are discovered, Microsoft is usually pretty quick at dealing with them. And then the consumer education gets spread pretty fast. Again, it took a little while when email was new to like, hey, don't click on that file that was attached to this email that says .exe instead of .doc. It took us a little while to train the consumers, but now there's an expectation that you have to guard yourself against these kinds of attacks on Microsoft. Whereas when we've seen similar exploits in OS X land, Apple will deny that there's a problem for a significant amount of time where people are obviously being affected. And you'll see in their forums that there is an issue until they finally come up with a fix for it. And then you go on, but there's an expectation in OS X land that you don't need to guard yourself against these kinds of exploits because Macs don't get viruses. And you're like, well, it's not a virus. This is something different.
Yeah. Yeah, no, but the thing here is just reading this, someone who has a very complex password should not particularly be worried about this. However, just the whole idea that an OLE object in Outlook is automatically read is something that Microsoft should look into and maybe try to curb. I don't know what the impact of performance would be by stopping that feature that automatically reads OLE content, but doing anything automatically when you receive a certain code might not be the best thing for Microsoft to be doing with Outlook and exploits of this kind. That's what I'm saying.
No, it's definitely not.
Able to curb it.
You're right. It's definitely not. But I also wholly expect that because of Microsoft's corporate commitments, that if any company is going to do a decent job of handling this type of exploit, it'll be Microsoft. We can bag on them for their consumer approach, which we should.
Oh yeah, but they're on point when it comes to corporate, man.
Right. Well, especially with their current head of Microsoft right now isn't going to let something like this.
Oh heck yeah! This is his game. This is his play, man.
Yeah, this is his jam.
Yeah, definitely. All right, moving on. AT&T announced that their 5G trials in Waco, Texas, have produced speeds of up to higher than 1 gigabit per second.
If it's not in New York, I don't care. Bring it here.
Which is in line and though lower than the speeds that Qualcomm has suggested. I've read through the article a little bit, and it looks like they're not using the new 5G chipsets yet. They're using actually 4
4G LTE?
Gigabit LTE chipsets, and then bumping that, which is what 5G is based off anyway. There's that underlying layer of gigabit LTE will always be there for 5G. So it looks like at least 5G is coming along. One of the components of 5G is, and I just forgot is millimeter wave, which is basically which will help us in big cities, is having small towers in around like a location, because it does only short distance. It's a much wider frequency, so that will give you better speeds, but just in short, smaller pockets. But it seems that it's there, so it looks like 5G is coming, very soon. Get ready for fast speeds. The future is here, and we will all have super high tech stuff.
The future is now.
No, the future is still the future. It's just
it's not now. Oh, okay.
It's not now. And again, I'll be curious to see what type of shenanigans different carriers pull to, once 5G starts to become standardized and LTE is our fallback, and we can start weaning ourselves off of 3G style connections, will we still have to jump through the same hoops for carrier compatibility? Will we still have to deal with lock-in? I think it is still worth talking about some of the recent stories about the cell phone industry playing games with potential cancer risks as it pertained to wireless connectivity and non-ionizing radiation and stuff like that, because we still haven't really addressed any of those concerns, and we're looking at a much denser saturation of signal generating equipment in every given neighborhood in every given area. So those types of things, I hope we can find a way to talk about as grown-ups, as we sort of blindly just fly directly into this next phase. It seems to me, I don't know, I want faster connectivity and I want faster data speeds, but if we're not improving backhaul, if we're not routing more fiber and more gigabit, so you can put a 5G tower up in Gallup, New Mexico, where my wife's family lives. They have LTE, but I couldn't join you on podcast when I was in Gallup. I had 4 bars of LTE. That meant nothing because there was no infrastructure supporting it. It's like I had a super wicked fast Wi-Fi router, but I was connected to dial-up.
No, true, and that's interesting. It's one of the things that I know, like just dealing with Qualcomm for a while, is that they've been trying to push the carriers, and it's interesting talking to the carriers and hearing like a different conversation, because they were saying, Qualcomm on one hand was saying, look, we need to get everyone to gigabit LTE, because then we will move our infrastructure forward and we'll get better speeds overall, because it helps also lower tech devices. And then the carriers, on the other hand, were saying, like I talked to some of the guys at T-Mobile and AT&T, and AT&T was talking about infrastructure cost and the cost benefits, and T-Mobile were looking at more specific areas and saying that, we're doing this, yes, in New York. And I was like, yeah, sure, of course, we will do it in New York. We'll do it in San Francisco. But like, what about places like where you went to,
Yeah. So this to me becomes one of those perennial arguments that we're having. It took LTE a long time to make it into more rural areas of the United States. And for what benefit? In a lot of those places, you're still only getting roughly, 3G plus those faux G kinds of speeds. If we're having the same debate and we need better connectivity, it really doesn't seem like it's going to be cheaper to do it wireless. Like, I get for where Qualcomm's coming from, and they are technically correct. It probably would be wireless, cheaper to serve wireless in those communities, but with no backhaul, then it's kind of a useless improvement. And this is where the carriers and the ISPs have been woefully deficient in their mission to rolling out faster connectivity to people who aren't in major city segments. And if we're going to run into that problem, then it kind of doesn't matter if we have 5G or some type of fiber to home. And in fact, it probably makes more sense for community initiatives to start funding their own fiber rollout, funded by the power companies. So, you pay your electricity bill, and you can also pay your broadband bill at the same time, because then you would have a meteor infrastructure. When there's damage or disruption to that infrastructure, 5G, a couple towers go down, and with this millimeter wave technology that they're talking about, it won't be it'll be a lot easier to disrupt the data services on 5G than it would be fiber to home, like actual nodes and connections.
Yeah, I think one of the things, and it's good you mentioned it, one of the things that I find woefully inadequate, especially on the carrier side, is that the fact that, for instance, like with gigabit LTE, which is actually the true backbone of 5G, 5G does not work without gigabit LTE. Like, that's just the fact. The way it is that gigabit LTE is already here. And for carriers, the upgrade costs, we actually saw a breakdown of the cost. It's on the same towers. You're not building anything new. You're literally retroing the towers you have, or even older towers you can, with gigabit LTE, to basically have that single band, that bandwidth to cover more in terms of area, in terms of speeds. But it's going to cost you money to do that, but it's not like you're actually planting a new tower.
But like going to gigabit LTE won't really cost as much to roll out. But then if we're having this, the thing that bothers me, because this isn't on Qualcomm. Qualcomm isn't.
No. I'm just talking about like the reason why, like I find it woeful on the carrier side. Like, this is something that will benefit you, and you, like I said, for those communities where you could be that source of internet connectivity. Where you could branch your business out instead of waiting for Comcast or
these companies are already making boatloads of money giving crappy or delivering crappy products to people. They're not going to spend more money to deliver a better product for about roughly a smaller increase. That's the thing. There's no incentive for them to look into what's good for a community, even though a lot of these companies that operate in these far out, hard to reach areas are subsidized by taxpayer money to deliver this.
You know why I'm actually laughing inside is literally, so we had to sit down with one of the guys at Qualcomm explaining the tech, and he said almost the same thing I said. It's like, think about it, it could be cheaper. And then somebody had the same answer as Sam. They just gave me a complete downer. I give him the worst. He was like, but AT&T is not going to do this. Like, literally was that response.
Because again, we're going to use the 5G connection symbol on your phone as a way to muddy the waters.
Yeah.
So they'll spend a ton of money putting up towers, knowing that that's going to be cheaper than actually delivering data centers and nodes that can process gigabit LTE to those communities and to those people. They might get a minor speed bump, or maybe a slightly better connection, or some of the voice over LTE features might be a little bit nicer, call quality, stuff like that. But they're not really gonna be getting the same experience that a major metropolitan area will be, with the density of population to the smaller reach of those 5G antennas, those 5G towers. And when we start looking at all of those costs and all of that infrastructure, I think it's still far and away makes the most sense to look at a rural community fighting for their right to install their own fiber to home. Something they'll have control over, something that will probably generate money after the initial rollout is funded. And then you can do whatever you want. Like we're talking about Google Voice potentially adding true VoIP Wi-Fi calling to the voice service. Why not just do your calls over, fiber powered Wi-Fi? Like that sounds fine. You suddenly take all the barriers off. And if these companies refuse to compete in these rural areas, then they should be able to build their own. That to me becomes like the tenet or the hallmark of having some sort of democratic process in this. But they've been convinced that they have the 4Gs and the LTEs, but they really don't.
I just want to tell you guys good news. I'm sorry. This has nothing to do with.
No, go ahead and change the subject. I am totally fine having the last word and being right on all of that.
I just saw a GTI 1080 Ti for $739. I click to buy, and it's gone.
Yeah.
Dude, I don't even try to buy graphics cards anymore.
No, it's not that. I already bought one for $900.
Yeah,
and then I saw it for $739. I was like, I haven't opened the other one. I can return it and buy.
It's ridiculous how much the markups on these things are right now. And as PC builders, as PC gamers, we're already paying the premium. And then miners come in and they make everything worse.
So I'm thinking what I might do, because I have a 970 and I hate my 970. The 970 was a dog of a card and I chose poorly. I'm thinking what I might do is try and grab like some lower end card, EVGA, and try and do their step up program just to get in line, so that then I can pay that towards, like, it'll be my down payment for a 1080 or some next generation.
Like that 1070?
Yeah. Or I was even gonna say, because like you know,
1080 now is like 6 something though.
Yeah, too expensive. Yeah, even the 1070. I was
gonna say we're only a couple months away from Computex, so if I get like a 1050 that I'm not even gonna use, and I just use that as my down payment for whatever next gen card comes out that maybe replaces the 1080, then I could do their step up program when that's out, and I'll be in line already because I'll have already purchased the 1050. I don't know. I'm so stuck in my rebuild. Ryzen 2 is already out. I don't know what I'm gonna do. This is such a mess.
Yeah, this is for my Ryzen 2 build, guys. Anyway, we've come to the end of the show. I was trying to buy stuff so I could build a PC, but now the price now is 1,150. This is 930 automatically, just like that. Yeah, that is the PC market right now.
Yeah,
absolutely.
No, it's not the PC market. It's just the freaking graphics market, man. It's the GPU market. It's ridiculous.
Well, and it's affecting everything, though. It's affecting solid state drives. It's affecting RAM prices.
Oh, RAM prices. So,
yeah.
I'm going to say this for you guys. I apologize. I will not have light up RAM because this supports 3,400 megahertz RAM, DDR4. And to do anything light up, not at 3,400, but at 3,000, will cost me $220 for 16 gigabytes.
Yep.
Sorry.
Yep. I know for my own personal build, I'm probably not going to be hitting the RGBs too.
See, the crazy thing is that this markup in cost is not coming out of the manufacturer, man. It's ridiculous. It's like it's not costing the manufacturers more to do this, and you're not selling it to the OEMs for that much more. It's oh God, this is. I'm gonna have to stick with what I have for now.
I love how I was like, oh my God, I'm staying where
I'm just gonna have to stick with what I have because it's like on principle alone. I'm not going to upgrade. I'm just not going to upgrade until this thing starts getting a little more reasonable.
I need to. I'll try and buy whatever new NVIDIA card is. So this is what delayed me from building Board Prime 2.0 because of just GPUs. But anyway, guys.
Board Prime 2.0.
Yeah. With a Threadripper, but.
The God Risen.
Sorry, what did you say, Juan? I didn't hear you.
No, I just said Threadripper.
He said the God Risen. I was like, okay.
Yeah, because we call that the God Machine, man. We put so much stuff in there.
I would share the build out. It was a $4,000 build, I think, altogether. It was 2 Titan X's, X99 chipset, expensive motherboard that was trash.
Yeah.
That couldn't handle more than 5 USBs connected at once. Yeah.
Great case too.
It was fun. Sam built all the liquid cooling. I just was recording video and talking like this is super cool.
But no liquid cooling on the next one. So
no, this is liquid cooling. But it's not custom.
We're not
I
doing
have
custom.
no energy for that stuff, man. Sorry, I can't.
Okay, the maintenance part of it,
yeah, exactly. No. And unless you want to do it yourself,
no. I just don't. I don't think I would have the time. Yeah.
Make time, man. Make time. People want to see. People in the chat right now talking about it. Guys, please comment. People in the chat right now talking about this. They want to see you do some liquid cooling, right? Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm seeing overwhelming demand for custom loop.
Yeah, like Fatbird said something about 1070, 1080 Ti and liquid cooling. I added the rest. It's not there, but I'm adding the rest.
Yeah, and Kyle Ruggles is sipping on a beer waiting for you to do it.
Yeah, but sipping on liquid. That's implied. It's implied.
And then Joe says capitalism at its best because you need to make custom liquid cooling.
Yeah, no, you should cool it with beer. Can you cool your PC with an ale?
That would probably be the worst system ever, but that would be nice to watch, man.
Right?
We're cooling this with beer.
Yeah, but do you have a tap on the side that you can, like just, have some beer out?
Man. Dude, a kegerator cooling system for your PC. Whoa! It goes from the kegerator into the PC, and then you have a tap into your
Yeah, I know. I'm not sure if I want to drink some of that metallic taste.
It's okay. It just adds iron in your blood, man.
Anyway, guys, at this point, you knew it comes to the end of the show. And I want to thank you all for chiming in. So quickly, since we've kind of run past in time this week, Juan, tell us what you have on your channel, what you can expect next week.
Oh, so just continuing on in the conversation about hearing loss, smartphones, technologies, I finally put up a video highlight of my conversation with Dr. Allison Grimes from UCLA. So it's I had a 30, almost 40-minute conversation with her, and I kind of picked out just a couple of little highlights. So it's a 6-minute video that people can check out. From 2 weeks ago, where I was podcasting every day for 2 to 6 hours a day. My voice still hasn't completely recovered, and my daughter also brought home a funky head cold that I'm working off right now. So I put my Samsung Go Mic Mobile on hold because I sound terrible, and that's the wrong sound to show off like wireless microphones and recording systems. So I'm hoping that I'll have that review out next week after a couple more days of rest and drinking a ton of tea. This last Thursday, we had another New Egg Now episode covering some big ideas in tech. Oh, that was actually a lot of fun. Like, our producers just let Trisha and I kind of riff on things like artificial intelligence and self-driving cars and the morality, the philosophy of what kind of technology we should use to inform driving cars. That was a really fun conversation for us to put together.
I take it trial and error technology is not one of them?
Like it's really a shame, just like throw it out there and see what works. Because apparently that's what Uber's doing.
Yeah, it seems to be.
So that was a sensitive part of the conversation right there too. Next week coming up again, Samsung. I did a little collab with Michael Fisher on a microphone that hopefully will be out. I don't know if it's going to be out next week, but will hopefully be out soon. So on his channel, he's reviewing a microphone, and I got to just kind of weigh in with some of my expertise in recording tech, and that was a really fun video to put together with him. And I'm missing something. I don't remember what. Oh, Geek Book Club, end of the month, we're going to be reading Master and Commander. So you still have enough time to pick up the first Master and Commander if you want to join us in that discussion at the end of the month. Set in the high seas and sailing. And it's one of the most painfully British books I've read in the most charming way possible. So you can check that out too.
Cool. On our end, just a couple of videos this week. We've got our 5 gaming accessories, volume 1, centered around PC gaming for this month. So definitely check it out. Some really cool gear that you can use for your gaming experience. And then we got our Samsung Q9F QLED TV. So we have a setup video, how to set that up. You can check it out. It's an awesome TV to set up. We also have our gaming on the Q9F TV as well. Did a whole gaming video. We played about 6 or 7 games. Also did some PC gaming on there. This TV handles that very well, but you have to see it for yourself. Also, just a note, since I just got the Sony A7 III, so I shot that video. That's the first video I shot with that. Take a look at it, and I'll be working on that at least in the next coming weeks for the full review, but that's a good idea on that. And finally, did our unboxing on the Ryzen 2. AMD sent a special package. We got the Ryzen 2 2700X and 2600X. So check that out. We will be having the build for you guys coming soon next week, so stay tuned for that. And I'll be using my very expensive graphics card in that build because I have no choice and I'll be broke. But yeah, that's it. Well, yeah. So thank you very much, guys, for watching. Definitely check out all the channels. Check out Mr. Warren Bowman, even though he's not here, at bw1.com. That is his name on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, and also his website, bw1.com. And then you can check out Mr. Juan Bagnell at Some Gadget Guy. He is Some Gadget Guy on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Also, he hosts a show on Newegg Thursdays, 1 p.m. Eastern. where he covers a lot of tech that you might be interested in picking up on Newegg. And you can follow Sam. Yes, that's his real name, not Black Iron _man, but Sam on Twitter. His handle is Black Iron _man. And myself, it is Booredatwork on all channels, as well as the website. So thank you very much, and always enjoy your entertainment. Bam.